So as I think all of you probably know, this is our president, Brian Caputo, and we're very pleased to have him here to talk to us for a little bit about some things he wants to talk about, and then he has agreed to answer some questions.
Sure. Well, it's good to be with you here for a few minutes and connecting with some that perhaps I haven't met before. Always like to interact with adjunct professors, and I so much appreciate what you do for our institution. You've been really a party to all of this as we've worked to bring distance learning to the institution, basically from north to south and east to west. And I know it required some agility getting us there, and we certainly do appreciate it. From where I sit, I'll say that the institution really is doing fairly well with it. It may not have been apparent to you all previously, but we have an emergency operations plan that was updated when I was back in my old job. And we've exercised it basically once a semester. And it got us good at dealing with certain types of crises. Really, we had anticipated more short-term crises, such as a tornado, such as a flood, such as a snowstorm, such as a power outage, all these things that would put us out of business for a short period of time. And then we could come back after a week or so and, resume operations. Well, this is a whole different sort of thing, but what we learned during some of those exercises, I think, helped us from a planning standpoint. We didn't anticipate something like this where we had to issue laptops to some faculty members and some students in order to help them get along. But generally speaking, we were able to adapt fairly well, really from top to bottom. I've heard some folks have had some struggles working in the online environment, but not a tremendous number. And I think we're all learning a lot, and it positions us well for the future. And it's kind of challenging us as an organization to grow in ways that we maybe would not have grown before. With respect to that burning question, when are we coming back to campus? I don't know. I really don't, and I don't think anybody does or could know. We've got obviously we're online the rest of the spring semester. We've got summer online now for basically I don't see that changing. And now the questions start getting asked about the fall. We're not committing to anything prematurely there, because while we've adapted well and met the needs of most students, there still are, virtual is not the best way to do every kind of class. There are some classes that have lab components, hands-on components, typically health sciences, clinicals, and so on, that, this is not optimal. We're getting by, but it's not optimal. So we are not going to commit to what is going to happen now for the fall. And you find some institutions, particularly those that have residence halls, that aren't willing to take the chance. They're already saying everything's online right now. We're not that kind of an institution. So we're going to kind of wait and make a decision at a time when it's best for all concerned and no one's life plans are unduly derailed. So I'll just kind of open with that. There are a few questions that Bonnie, Jean, and Cheryl sent to me that I'll kind of touch on. The technology piece is really extremely important in this environment. And as I say, most have adapted very well, and we're appreciative of that. It's fair to say that maybe going forward, we may have more online, because now it's again not the optimal way to do business, I don't think, in all situations. But has the student population now got an appetite for online and they want more of it? We'll see. We're here in part to meet the demand of for educational services. So we'll have to see what the demand is. but remaining nimble and keeping up your abilities to be able to teach in an online environment is probably a very good thing. What's really driving our plans to go back face to face is safety. That's really the primary driver of all this. Some folks, interestingly, were clamoring to get off campus as we started to approach like March 14th, 15th, 13th, somewhere around there. They were clamoring to get off. Now I've got folks clamoring to get back on. It's an interesting phenomenon. Everyone's risk tolerance is different. Am I going to basically open the doors wide open and say, everybody come on in? No, because the chances of that, if I do that, chances are, Murphy's Law, somebody's going to bring that virus on campus, and it is going to get spread throughout a wide number of students. Now, could there be some social distancing things and all that? Yes. But then again, we get into the question of who's going to teach those classes. Some faculty members are going to say, I don't feel safe doing that. This thing isn't over. And if you study at all the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918 and you see the waves that came in, their fears are not unfounded. So we are in a go slow approach, bringing people back to campus, and the central consideration is safety. Enrollment figures. Enrollment figures for the summer are not good. They're low. The enrollment is lower than we expected it to be. Right now, week to week, I'll say this week compared to the same week a year ago, we're down 14% on FTE, and we're down 21% in headcount. Now that is considerably more than we were expecting to be down, and how we have been trending as higher ed has generally sort of contracted over the last couple of years, 3-4 years. We were actually doing reasonably well compared to our sister institutions in terms of, we were seeing declines, but they weren't as large as many of our sister institutions. And we seem to be kind of, with some of our recruiting efforts and strategic enrollment management efforts, just getting going. We were already starting to see positive results in terms of things flattening out. Now, what does this pandemic mean for us going forward? Now, historically, in a economic downturn, community colleges tend to benefit because there's retooling that goes on, and folks come back and they find that community college is an economical way to retool, and that's a good thing. Will that happen here? We're not entirely sure. We are getting some anecdotal evidence that there are parents that are asking the question, well, why should I send my kid to University of fill in the blank and have them take online classes there, because they're going all online, and pay 5 times as much or more when I could just send down the street to COD and let them do COD for a semester, a year or more, and then send them off? Well, quite frankly, I think that's the question they should have been asking themselves all along. You didn't need an economic downturn or a pandemic to figure that one out. But be that as it may, some are starting to figure it out. But we do have to give some thought to what this means going forward. So what we are doing is we are relooking our FY21 budget. It was basically almost done, but we've gotten some indications of potential decline in enrollment. Maybe we'll catch up with that and it'll get better down the road. Maybe the pandemic will pass more quickly. Who knows? But we do have some indication that there are some enrollment problems, and we do have an indication that the money coming from, that affects tuition revenue, of course. And we do have some strong indications that the support from the state is going to decline, because the state is in bad shape financially. They were in bad shape going into this, And then we had, some elections take place and a lot of promises being made. And now you have a catastrophe hitting you. So it's affecting our budget situation. We're not that uncomfortable with going in with a small deficit because traditionally we kind of budget conservatively and don't spend all that we buy. So if you go in with a deficit budget, it's not that bad because in the end our conservative practices put us in a good position in the end. This is a horse of a different color. Because of the things I already mentioned, the deficits are much larger without having touched anything than we had originally anticipated. So the staff has gone through, and our objective here is to try to maintain the workforce that we've got. That is the overarching objective, other than, of course, continuing educational services at the level that we were previously. We, as best we can, want to take care of our own. So there are some changes that we've made in order to better position us to do that. Because let's face it, no one knows how long this is going to last, and no one knows how deeply it's going to affect us. So we're starting to take some actions that basically enable us to, the metaphor I'll use is push the pause button for a year. In other words, all the new things that we had ambitions to do, for the most part, let's just take a breath and try to maintain what we've got, keep the quality education flowing, and then revisit some of these things later on. So a lot of the requests that came up in the budget for new things, I'll say, from the various corners of the institution, probably won't be funded. What we've done is we went through the capital requests. There were some things that were in motion from the current year, that pieces were done. So we'll let those roll. But beyond that, a lot of it I ended up cutting. Cutting is too strong a word, actually. Postponing until FY22. It's not dead altogether. It's just postponed so that we can have more resources to keep the institution going and revisit them all a year from now. It's not the end of the world. There are some capital maintenance sorts of things that I have not changed, because you push the maintenance stuff back, it just comes back to haunt you a year or two later, and it's worse than it would have been than if you'd just done it. So that's being maintained. Generally speaking, new staff positions, almost every one of them postponed. There's a couple of exceptions that'll probably end up surfacing, but almost every one postponed. Where we've been seeing, 10, 15 positions or more every year added, that's not happening next year. In fact, what we're doing is we're relooking all of the searches we've got ongoing and evaluating how necessary is it to do it right now. What do we lose? This is a basic question the leaders are asking themselves. What do we lose if we simply stop that search? And if the answer is really we can get by, that search is being stopped. If it's something that, no, we got to hire this because there's some significantly bad thing that will happen, okay, we'll hire that one. That's kind of the approach we're using. And I'll also say, just in general, we call new initiatives, we are postponing. There are some things, just like replacing equipment, that if our students and our instructors don't have the right equipment, fill in the blank, we're buying that, because that's to maintain the quality of service. But I think you need to think about FY21 that we're about to enter is a wait and see year. So we'll see how the enrollment goes. We'll see what the shape of the institution is after this is over. We'll see how long the pandemic goes and what its longer term effects are. Fortunately, we've got some resources on hand to be able to help the institution weather the storm. So, what you may be hearing about in the higher ed press about widespread layoffs and so on and so forth at certain institutions, that's not anticipated here at all. As I said at the outset, we're trying to maintain our educational services and our current workforce without taking on more costs. And again, hitting the pause button for a year. So those are basically my comments, and I'm happy to take questions from the group if you've got any.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to unmute people who have the question and let them ask themselves the question. And I don't see Margarita.
Poromanska.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If you could go ahead and ask your two questions.
Actually, one question I copied it, somebody had it, I just copied it in a form of question, so it's not being passed. But Dr. Caputo, the questions are, what is the minimum for an online class to run? We're talking summer.
That's a good question. And we are, right now, the course caps have not been changed. The provost is looking at whether that needs to be adjusted right now. I don't have a final answer for you, but it is an issue that's been raised as to whether or not our philosophy here at this institution has been a course is a course is a course. If you teach online, you teach hybrid, whatever it is you're teaching, it's all the same. But there may be an adjustment there, even if it's temporary. I just don't have a final answer on that yet.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, this was my second question, is COD is going to reduce the minimum, but we're going to wait and see then for the summer.
I wouldn't say wait and see. We're evaluating it right now to see whether that is something that is what we need to do to best serve the students and to take into account, of course, the load that everybody's got.
Yeah, because
Dr. Caputo, tied in with that though, I think you had already told us earlier what the minimum would be for a course to run.
Well, the minimum generally is 6. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Your speech course, you generally have to have a little bit more. In this environment, will the provost even bend that a bit? It's possible. It's possible. I think it depends on the situation, the course, and so on.
Kate Del Debbio, you had a question.
Yes, I was just wondering if COD intends to go fully online into the next academic year, so fall into spring. Our adjunct faculty members in the union, are we still going to be guaranteed 2 courses online?
We would do our level best to try to do that as best we can. It's a little bit difficult to see what the fall is right now. Like I said, we haven't changed. If you go out and look at the course offerings, we haven't changed anything yet for fall. We're hopeful that it'll get better and that we can kind of go back to normal. All I can say is that we would do our best to deliver.
Are there any other questions while we have Dr. Caputo here? I know there are a few folks on the telephone instead of, let me check in with those folks since they can't see they can't see. Loretta, did you have any questions for Dr. Caputo?
Not right now, thank you.
I have a question.
Larry, do you have any questions?
Larry? I have a question.
Okay.
Alan Rado. Brian, physically speaking, is any instructor allowed to be on campus?
Yes. If you need to be on campus, just call your supervisor, which would basically be your program chair or perhaps your dean. And then the dean or the program chair will get in touch with the provost. Basically, anybody who needs to be on campus can be, like to get books or whatever it is, to get a resource. Just have to get your cabinet officer's approval and your immediate supervisor.
So let me clear.
What about students? Students,
no. There's no reason that I know of that students need to be on campus. Yeah, and one thing I should point out to you, if you haven't been seeing them, we put out updates pretty regularly. We didn't have one this week. It was a slow week, if you can call it that, in terms of new news. But roughly on a weekly basis, you should be getting an official communication from me that kind of gives you an update on the things that are changing as we're moving more things online, or there's more resources available from this, that, or the other place. I try to capture that in all college sort of message, and the old ones are out there on the website. You can click on the banner at the top the website, and it'll lead you to all the updates. But in addition to that, the provost has been putting out his own set of updates to get more granularly into the stuff of teaching and so on. So you get information coming from a little bit of two different directions. The broad stuff I cover, then the provost gets into stuff that faculty is interested in specifically.
So just to clarify then, faculty, if we need things, we just need to contact our deans.
That's right.
And we can get back into the building to check whatever we're doing to check.
That's right. You sure can. You
So
sure
great.
Do you, Brian, do you need to like set up a time? Is that what you're saying?
Well, actually, no. What transpires is that if you get that approval, you come on campus, and what happens is that the dean notifies the police department that you're coming, and the time so they can let you in, because I'm not sure all of you have cards that will open the doors for you. And then what happens is that the custodians come through after you've been here the next day or whatnot, and do a cleaning in the office area that you were in.
So next question up would be Neil Heatherly. Would you like to ask your question? Neil? Can you unmute and...
Sorry, I thought somebody else had to do that. My bad.
It's okay.
So thanks again for your time. You'd mentioned previously that you're already looking at the issue of potentially adjusting how many people would be in a class. Now, is there a possibility then, if the decision is made to lower those numbers, that then might create additional classes if it causes some to be?
Yes, it is possible. Yes, it is possible.
All right, thanks.
Sabia Sharif, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just want to make sure, are we going to be allowed to wear a mask and gloves if and when we come back?
We haven't gotten that far yet because we haven't thought about coming back. I mean, I haven't seriously considered a comeback time. We'll probably be looking to the public health officials to give us guidance on that. There typically has been some guidance coming out for higher education. Some of it's from the American Association of Community Colleges, or it's the Illinois Community College Board. They have recommended practices, but we'll watch some of those recommendations before we put something out. We'll be, I can assure you, we'll be in step with our industry. We don't want to put anybody in harm's way. These things keep changing. I don't know if you remember back at the beginning of this whole thing, they used to say that masks are useless. And that's what I heard. Don't bother with masks unless there's these certain circumstances. Now they're saying you should have masks. I gotta say, I don't know what the recommendation is going to be when it gets to that point. There might be, different social distancing procedures. And it's anybody's guess. But we'll do our level best to keep you safe. And as I hope became clear in my initial comments, safety is the ultimate concern here. And I got to tell you straight up that this organization is running really so well in this mode. You might say, well, this is clunky. We're all by myself, and it's hard to do that. But you're doing an unbelievably good job. You really are. And it's adjunct faculty, it's regular faculty, it's administrators. Everybody has adapted amazingly. So we only have a few classes that are having difficulty completing. And by May 15th, I'm talking about. So what can you say? And what's the incentive to bring people on campus and put them in danger when you're maybe not feeling pleasant about it? What's the incentive to bringing you on campus and endangering you? I don't see any incentive at all.
Next question, Ruby, you actually posted 2 questions, so if you could truncate them into one double-edged question, that would be great. Ruby?
I am unmuting myself. Hi, Dr. Caputo. Thanks again for giving your time and your thoughts. I just wanted to know when courses are canceled for adjunct faculty. I'll give you my own example. I was supposed to teach a cadaver course Over the summer, I was assigned one, but then it got canceled because we're only offering with models and, the sequence. So I was under the impression that it's going to be replaced with the models, the second part, because I'm currently teaching ANP1 and students were wondering if they can take ANP2 over the summer. So to answer them, I said we're going to have to wait. So my question is, one, what is the mechanism for replacing the courses for people who have been assigned a course and then it's it's taken away? And then second, does full-time faculty still get preference to teach over the summer, just like they do throughout the year?
Okay, as far as the specifics of what courses might be brought back if there's demand, I think it'll really all boil down to demand and whether the course can physically be delivered. If it's a course that we've got enough demand for, and there's one way or another the lab can be covered online somehow, some way, then there's an incentive for us to bring it back. So I'd encourage you to talk to your dean and the provost about the specifics of that, either one, about the specifics of that one. And I'm sorry, your second question was?
Yeah, because my second question was, does full-time faculty get preference to teach over the summer?
The answer to that is yes. That's contractual. Okay. It's not because I'm being, not nice to adjunct faculty members. That's a contractual thing. But I certainly want to have as many of you working as possible. So I understand that not all adjuncts are similarly situated. For some adjuncts, teaching is kind of a fun thing they do on the side from their regular livelihood. For others, it is the livelihood. I get that. So we will do all we can, and we're taking all this into consideration in terms of what classes are offered. Do we change the caps? All that sort of thing. Those decisions will have to be made shortly.
Okay, thank you so much.
So currently we have 2 questions in the queue, and I know you have a few more minutes, so we'll get them hopefully done. So Sandra Beagles, I hope I pronounced that right. If you want to go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll get to Judy right after. And
I may only have time for one more because I got to get into an audit committee meeting, but if whoever has the other question wants to email me, I'll try to answer it for you.
Judy's question is a really good one.
Okay.
Why don't you let her go then, and I'll ask Cheryl afterwards.
Yeah, because we have the answer to your question, Sandra.
Okay.
So Judy, if you could take the last question, then go right ahead.
Dr. Caputo, thank you for being with us and all your information. And I don't know that you have the answer to this yet as much as a question for us all to think about. When we do resume to campus, we might still need to adhere to some social distancing. So are we thinking about smaller class sizes for safety?
That's possible. That's very possible. And the provost and his staff are debating that. But again, we're kind of waiting to some extent for what comes out as best practices from the AACC, from the ICCB, and so on and so forth, because we've got some medical professionals on staff, but they're not experts in coronavirus. And there may not even be experts in public health. There are other people that in other organizations, other institutions that are supposed to know a whole lot more about this stuff than we do. So we'll be doing is be watching for learned guidance on what to do. And as I said earlier, rest assured, I'm going to be on the end of the spectrum that is valuing safety above all else. Because, we may get folks in and try to get them more quickly to a livelihood. But as the governor talked about, if they don't have a life at the end, what's the point?
Thank you for your time during this difficult time.
Sure.
Thank you very much, President Caputo. We always appreciate your coming and talking to our members, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, folks. And thank you for all your efforts. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.